All right, well, today is the second part in our continual series on leadership. We will finish it this evening. The subtitle is Maintaining Equilibrium in Relationships, because if you... equilibrium being even. Because whenever something looks like this, that's a problem. And so what we want to do is we have taken a break over the last year and a half. We have been spending a lot of time in verse-by-verse study in the Bible and different doctrines and different topics that the Lord has put on our heart to learn about. But we have stopped for the last 2 weeks because, quite frankly, this stuff that was introduced to me, which was originally championed by Dr. Edwin Friedman, has really revolutionized my life. And I think it is revolutionizing some of you. I've heard some great comments on, for those of you that were here last week and for those of you that listened to the CD online. It's good stuff. And I hope that it's not my stuff. I'm just teaching it. So I can't take credit for almost none of it. But that being said, please absorb this information tonight. Put it into practice. I have some handouts from last week. If you weren't here last week and you want them, I don't ever do handouts, as you know, but this stuff is so important that I believe this should be your Bible. These are your handouts for this week. And I don't even know if we have enough for everybody that might want one. I can always print up more. But I highly recommend that you take this information and use it like a study course and look at it, because it will drastically affect your future. Probably none other than anything else that you will ever come across, because these last two series are really principles and bullet points right out of the Bible on how to apply the Bible to your life and relationships. Because as we learned last week in review, that the two greatest commandments are love the Lord God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, right? Okay? That's one of the greatest commandments. Well, both of those are related to relationships. Okay? So, with that in mind, let's do a little bit of review to get everybody on the same page, and then we'll go right into our second part. If the leader or head of an organization, and by the way, anytime you see leader, you can put your name in there, because everyone's a leader. Whether you think you're a leader or you think you're the bottom of the roll of the rung follower, you will lead someone potentially in your life, whether it be your family, your children, your grandchildren, or a friend. Everyone is leading someone because everyone looks up to everyone, to somebody. The leader of an organization clearly defines the direction of that the leader is going, and if the leader stays connected to the members of the organization, the members will follow the leader's direction. This cause and effect happening will be automatic. We're going to come back to this later on, because this is one of the most paramount parts of leadership, is that wherever the head goes, the body follows. Okay? So if you are a good head, then you'll be leading the body in a good direction. If you're a bad head, then you'll be going and leading the body in the wrong direction. So what we want to do is we want to learn how to be good leaders, because everyone's leading. We learned why people go in opposite directions, where conflicts come from. You can how many diagrammed sentences in high school? Okay, remember that? I don't even know if they do that anymore. But we are diagramming relationships is what's going on. We are going to, literally by the time we're done tonight, you will be able to take this information, and every single argument or conflict or highly emotional, anxious situation that you get in, when you leave, you will be able to diagram that and pinpoint exactly where the mistake was made on your part or someone else's. And we can learn from that. The problem with relationships is not conflicts. You guys realize that. Conflict is a great thing. Now, I haven't yet to have that part in my relationship with Cheryl yet, but one day we will have an argument and we will be able to learn from it. But no, arguments, conflict is a good thing. It's not something we try to avoid. It's something that we want to manage. We want to learn from them. You grow from adversity. There are three forces that pull people in opposite directions. Number one, individuality and togetherness polarity. We have some organizations, and there are some groups, some churches, some companies that are really into being together, and unity is the most important thing, and family-oriented, and just feeling good about togetherness, everyone being together. That's a problem when you're too heavily weighted. I know that sounds strange. How could that be wrong, Jim? Because when everyone's so centered on unity, then when one person says, I got an idea that's different from the regular group, what happens to that person? he gets booted, okay? Because individuality is not stressed. Individuality, on the other hand, everyone is so heavily weighted on, I got an idea, and everyone's encouraged to be so individual that there's no togetherness. So there has to be that equilibrium of maintaining your individuality and your own ideas, yet still having connection with the group. Number 2, pursuing and distancing. We spent quite a bit of time on this, but the idea is very simply, kind of like the fox and the hound. When the hound is pursuing, what's the fox doing? Distancing very quickly. Distancers will always outdistance pursuers. When you pursue someone in a relationship, they will always distance themselves. Almost always. Okay? So if you want someone to stop distancing, what do you need to do? Stop pursuing. Okay? Stop in your tracks, back up, and 9 times out of 10, that person will eventually look over their shoulder, realize that the gun is not pointed at them, and they will stop, and sometimes they will even turn around and begin to pursue. Okay? And that is we spent a lot of time on all that, different kinds of examples and what that means and how to make that an equilibrium. That is a constant dance in relationships, pursuing and distancing. It is always healthy to learn that dance, to learn when to distance, to learn when to pursue. Overfunctioning and underfunctioning, this is last polarity. We see this in churches all the time, in organizations, companies. Some of you work for companies, work for places where the boss is doing everything or he's doing nothing and you're doing everything, okay? Sometimes a really strong-willed leader will tend to, when they see that people are underfunctioning and not stepping up to the task, what does that leader tend to do? Take over and do those jobs. Well, the second that leader takes over and begins to overfunction beyond his role, what happens is the people begin to be paralyzed. You can't grow. There's nothing to do because no one is giving you the responsibility to do that. Okay? And note these polarities are not problems to solve, but polarities to be managed. This information is something to learn. If you recognize and memorize just these 3 polarities and understand them, every relationship and conflict will go much smoother because you'll notice, that person is angry with me, and you look and maybe I pursued them a little bit too hard. Maybe I need to back off a little bit. Okay? This whole idea of family systems theory, this relationship stuff, it all revolves around the idea of yourself, of self. Not in a bad way, in a good way, is that how am I contributing to the system around me, the relationship system around me. It's not pointing to the system and saying you're the problem or my friend's the problem. It's how am I contributing to what they're feeling. When you get past that part of pointing fingers and recognizing your part, that's when you begin to grow as a person and recognize and mature very quickly. There are 6 must-dos to becoming a better leader. We only went over 2 of them. Last week we spent a considerable amount of time talking about differentiating yourself, becoming who you were supposed to be, allowed to grow and mature into the gifts that God's given you. Okay? Differentiating yourself from a group is like a group of ducks, and you begin to walk outside and say, I necessarily don't agree with the group. This is my feeling or thought on this particular subject, but still have the ability to maintain connection. Where everyone makes their mistake, including me growing up, and I made a lot of mistakes in this area, is I was really good at differentiating myself. Leaders are typically pretty good at differentiating themselves. This is what I think. Anybody know anybody that's really opinionated? That's really good at telling what they think, okay? But they're not very good typically at staying connected to the group. They differentiate themselves, they draw that line in the sand and they say, you are wrong if you don't cross on my side. Well, it's okay to state what you believe and it's okay to state what you think in a given situation, but you must stay connected. If you're going to go to your boss and ask for a raise and tell him that he's wrong or how he's operating his entire business, you better stay connected or you'll be disconnected very quickly. Okay, staying connected with the group is really important. Number 3, maintaining a non-anxious presence. We're going to talk about that. Being non-reactive. Managing triangles. We talked about that a little bit last time. We're going to touch on that again. And persisting in the face of sabotage. Okay? These 6 things, if you recognize this, this is a whole college course. And I know Josh, where's he at? He's a psychology major, and he talked to me afterwards last week and said that this stuff is Basic 101. for psychology. So if you understand this stuff, even on this level, you will be able to counsel people and hopefully counsel yourself, because you'll be better apt and equipped to handle situations that are high in anxiety. So number 3, maintaining a non-anxious presence. What does that mean? Well, does anybody know what a transformer is? Now, I remember what a transformer was. But I'm not talking about the cartoons, okay? Anybody know what an electrical transformer does or is? Any electricians in here?
Isn't that the thing on the light bulb?
The thing on the light pole, very good. That's not quite the definition I was thinking of, but here's what it is. Machines and appliances using electricity are manufactured to operate using a specific voltage and frequency, okay? Sounds simple. Well, here's the curve. Voltage and frequency vary from place to place. So all this electricity that's created is not the same amount, okay? So, and not in all countries, and sometimes not all regions within the same country. So to generate the same voltage and frequency in the electricity, that's where transformers come in. Transformers take the electricity and regulate it to a proper manageable level, so when it enters your house, it doesn't blow up all your appliances, okay? Just in case there's a power surge or something, the transformer, guess what blows up? Is the transformer. Okay, how many have seen that? I've actually witnessed that once driving down the highway, a transformer blowing up right in front of me. It's like a bomb. And it's regulating the energy. It's too much energy, because what happens if that transformer is not there and you're blow drying your hair? Okay? Your hair dryer blows up in your hand. So we don't want that to happen, or all your circuits get blown in your house. So that's what the transformers are there. I'm going to bring that back to what we mean by maintaining a non-anxious presence. Transformers adjust the voltage coming into the appliance to the proper level and pump the electricity through the appliance to keep it operating properly. In short, people transformers. You should be a transformer. Good leaders are always good transformers, because a people transformer absorbs highly charged negative electricity coming from others around them and concentrate on readjusting the voltage to more manageable positive levels. Okay? I don't even have to do a share of hands. I know every person in here has walked into a volatile situation where two people are arguing, or they've been triangled and pulled into a relationship, and they start telling you about, I can't believe what Sandy said about me, or did this about me, or can you believe this person said this? And what they're trying to do is pull you into a triangle, and we'll talk about that more. What you do in that situation is everything. Every one of us get caught in that, and sometimes we're so caught off guard, we don't even know what to do. Recognize you're a transformer. Your job is not to take sides. Your job is to absorb the energy so that it can be properly managed. And take the negative energy, absorb it. In other words, do not become emotionally charged. Do not allow yourself to be emotionally charged by that person. And we'll talk a little bit more about that level later. Maintaining a non-anxious... I don't know why I have a problem saying that word. Anxious. It's my lisp. Maintaining a non-anxious presence in a highly emotional energy field requires staying in touch without getting zapped. Because your initial reaction when everything's buzzing around you is to do what? When a domino falls, what happens to the next domino? It falls. So when you walk into a highly emotional or a highly energy charged atmosphere, you will normally take on the atmosphere that you walk into. When you walk into a stadium, you in your right mind would never, if you were the only one in that stadium, stand up and start screaming and yelling and going crazy, knowing the television cameras are on you, okay? And acting like an idiot. But you get 65,000 other people in that room doing the same thing, and you will take on the atmosphere of that surrounding. If you walk in there and there's 65,000 people and no one is making a sound, highly doubt it that you're going to stand up and go crazy. Okay? It's a strange phenomenon in humanity, but we take on our atmospheres. Okay? When you walk into an emotional situation or you become part of that, maintain that non-anxious presence. Older people tend to do this very well. Okay? That maturity level, especially in seniors that I work with, they can really walk into a room and people can start yelling, I've been here 7,422 times, let's stay calm. And they tend to have that maturity level. People can remain non-anxious if they are not present. Think about that for a second. It's very simple. If you are not in the room, You're not anxious. Pretty simple, right? The trick is to remain both non-anxious and present simultaneously. We can all be non-anxious when we're not in the middle of it. That's why hindsight is always so 20. That's why it's easier for me to give you advice in your situation, because I wasn't there when everyone was screaming and yelling at each other. I can remain nice and calm. But it's very difficult sometimes to walk into that emotional situation. I specifically remember one time, one of the most non-anxious people that I know, the most set back, calm, relaxed, dignitary, and was pulled into a conflict with two other people. In 10 minutes, that non-anxious pastor was screaming at the top of his lungs. Remember that? Because what happens is sometimes it's very difficult to maintain that non-anxious presence. The second he stood up and started going berserk, the whole meeting fell apart. Everything falls apart. When you as the transformer blow up, there's no electricity that flows and nothing can work. Okay? This type of leadership goes against most leadership training that puts an emphasis on just doing something and fixing things instead of putting the focus on differentiating amongst a highly emotional surrounding. This is for everybody. Again, it's not just for leaders. Because what most leadership programs will teach is that I come in or you come in and somebody has a relationship problem and you fix it. Dave, this is where you're doing wrong. A, B, and C. You're not doing anything wrong. Dave is the problem. Okay? Or whatever.
I bet Emily agrees with that.
Yeah, that's right. If she don't now, she will. So that is typically the leadership pattern or scenario. It is not your job to fix anyone's problem. Because why? Now, anybody think of a good scripture for that? How can you go and fix someone else's problem? Yes. Okay? Don't take a speck out of your brother's eye when you have a log in your own. All right, our job, again, is not to fix things. Our job is to differentiate. When everyone else in the room is having a heart attack because of whatever relational problem is going on at the time, it is your job to self-differentiate and step out from that crowd. Because what will happen is when you self-differentiate, what do you think is going to happen? Any ideas? You're going to begin, your presence will begin to start flowing throughout that entire group. People will take on whatever's around them. So I want you to picture this. You're here. Okay, you are here. Everyone else is around you. What happens is you maintain, we'll talk about more of this, I think, coming up next, is a sense of presence, or you maintain this type of emotional surrounding. And when you walk into a room, you will begin to affect people around you, and then this person begins to calm down. And then this person begins to calm down, and it becomes a spread just like a domino effect in a negative area. It becomes a domino effect in a positive area. I challenge you to try this the next time that you are in a situation like this, is to differentiate yourself and to not try to fix something, but focus on being a regulator. Okay? Taking that highly negative energy and regulating it in your own life. Do not worry. Literally, it's like this. It's seriously like walking into a room and not hearing anything, but seeing everybody yelling. Or maybe just two people, or maybe on the phone. Ignore the situation and focus on yourself. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. We're talking initially. When the electric bolt is running down the line, you have got to stop that electricity from hurting somebody in this house. Your job is to absorb that energy. A major sign of being better differentiated is when the leader can be present in the midst of emotional turmoil and actively relate to key people while calmly maintaining a sense of the leader's own direction. What I mean by that is this. Let's pretend that Emily is a key person, Josh is a key person, and Josh is a key person, and everyone in here. What I mean by key person is they are the most influential leaders in the group, okay, or the people that had the original issues with each other. And I walk in and everyone is fighting amongst us. Now, what my job is to do, typically, is to diffuse the situation by doing what first? Getting all upset? Taking sides? Staying calm. Okay? Maintaining my sense of presence. And diffusing the energy. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay connected to Emily, Josh, and Josh. I am not going to take sides. I am going to be on all three sides all the same time. Now, I'm going to show you a little later the trick on how to do that. This is the trick to diffusing all conflicts, is that you as a leader or as a person recognizes that the issue is irrelevant. What's the most important thing? Maintaining connection and relationship between these three. That nobody walks away disconnected from the relationship. As a father, as a mother, as a parent, as a teacher, as a leader, as a follower, this cannot be stressed enough. Your situation, the next time you run into, for you college students or students, you run into a situation with a friend, your job is not to take sides. Your job is to make sure that those two individuals maintain connection. And I'm going to give you some tricks of the trade on how to do that, but that is the upfront most important thing, is to keep connection. The second I take Josh aside, what happens to these two?
They join forces and beat you up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Women inherits the earth, right? Now I've disconnected myself from Josh, and they've disconnected themselves. I've just caused major problems as the leader the second that I start to do that. Maintain connection. When anxiety runs out of control, people simply take sides. That's what happens. In the most chaotic, this is what happens in Congress every day, okay? Is that chaos erupts, and the true blue and red blood comes out, and people flat out split right down the middle and take sides. So we must diffuse the anxiety so that people can think. Always when people think, things head in the right direction. Leaders manage this level of anxiety not by telling everyone to calm down. Calm down, everyone. How many of you have been in arguments and someone told you to calm down? How many of you, when they do that, want to hit them for telling you to calm down? Okay? Telling someone to calm down does not calm them down in any way, shape, or form. What's that? Absolutely. It makes them even more mad. And now you walk into two people fighting and you're saying, calm down, Jane. Calm down, Steve. And the next thing you know, they're yelling at you. What are you mad at me for? I'm just trying to help. No, you're not helping. Do not ever tell anybody to calm down. You manage, but managing your own level of anxiety. You will actually have the ability to, get this, manage the entire level of anxiety by managing your anxiety. Isn't that right, Josh? When somebody comes in for counseling, the last thing that you want to do is match their level of anxiety. You're not helping them at all. You want to diffuse something right away, is you maintain your equilibrium. Maintain your peace. Maintain your calmness. Maintain your own level of anxiety. Because guess what? You're a human being. And Andrea, isn't it right, when someone calls you up and starts talking about somebody else, you can quickly find your emotions quickly rising. We've all been there, right? Where now you're starting to be mad at person B because person A is your friend too, and person B apparently did something to person A, and now you're mad at person B and you haven't even heard their side. You're ready to hang them by the gallows. You must maintain your level of anxiety because there's always another side. Practical example. Okay, here we go. Someone's extremely angry. In effect, they are lost on their own island of emotion. Okay? We've all been there. They need to be led away from the island of anger towards the island of peace. And I know that sounds totally retarded. The island of anger to the island of peace. That's right. It really is true. Our job is to lead them away from their anxiety. Partly by absorbing it and being a sponge and being okay with that. And secondly, by leading them, and I'll show you how in a minute, to a different place that is much easier to converse. When someone is letting off negative electrical charges, our job is to absorb those charges by maintaining a non-anxious presence. Connect with the person by acknowledging their feelings and then providing other ways of looking at the situation. This is key. If you have these handouts, which if anybody wants one, you can take one now if you want to mark on it. But this one paragraph I would have you highlight, because this paragraph here is very key. I'm going to read it again. When someone is letting off negative electrical charges, Our job is to absorb those charges by maintaining a non-anxious presence first. Maintain a non-anxious presence. Then connect with the people that are in the situation by acknowledging their feelings. So now we're going to take this down to one-on-one. You and a friend or you and a spouse are having an issue. One person states how they feel. What is your job to do? They're angry at you. They just actually called you a name that you were not happy with. So your initial response is to do what?
Punch it in the face.
Fight back. Okay, your initial human reaction, and I'll show you why we do that in a minute. It's totally instinctive to do that. It's called a flight or fight situation. If someone hits you in the face, your first reaction, if it's not to duck, is when you get up off the floor, is to hit them back. Or hit them with something else. Okay? Or call them a name or something. Okay? Your first initial instinctive reaction is to return tooth for tooth. Okay? And an eye for an eye. You must not do that. You must maintain a non-anxious presence as if you did not hear those adjectives that came out of their mouth. Then, believe it or not, the anti-instinctive thing for you to do is to acknowledge the person's feelings and let the adjectives go over your head. Recognize what they said. Validate, validate, validate. It's the number one thing that you can do to diffuse a relationship issue or an argument or a conflict is validate the other person what they said. Even if you don't understand it, say, man, I totally recognize what you're saying. I may not totally understand how you're feeling, but I recognize that. If you can help me understand a little bit more, maybe I can ultimately see what you're saying and help the situation. Then provide other ways of looking at the situation. Here's the deal. Never give advice. Doesn't that sound a little strange? Have you heard this? We talked about this actually last week with a relationship that you are constantly being drawn into an argument, right? You never give advice when somebody's in a situation that is having issues. Does anybody know why?
That's not when they want advice. They don't want to hear it.
Number one, they don't want to hear it.
It'll make them more angry.
It'll make them more angry, believe it or not, because, Josh, why? Tell us why.
Because you're already angry and they want to yell at you.
That's right.
Tell them what they should do to fix themselves.
Now, let's take the same situation, but now they're not mad at you, they're mad at someone else. Should we still give them advice?
No, because you don't want to be like, realize that they're right.
Because what happens if they ask you, that's right, that's exactly right, Andrea, is that what happens if the advice that you're giving goes against what they're feeling? Do you think they're going to implement that advice?
Any advice you give them in that situation, they're not going to listen to.
That's right. They will never listen to the advice. So here's what we do. The best way to diffuse anxiety is to ask probing questions to both parties involved for the purpose of helping both parties to better self-differentiate themselves and their points of view. Okay? So, it's a good... Probably teenagers have more of these things happen on a daily basis than the rest of us. But so Emily, I'm going to pick on you since you're new today. All right, you have somebody come in to call you up and they start yelling about a friend of yours or something that they did. Okay, the first thing that you do is remain calm, have that non-anxious present, and the next thing that you want to do after they're completely done and exhausted themselves and they can't talk anymore because you just want to let them talk, is then at that point you don't want to give advice. And when they say, Emily, what do you think I should do? That is the number one key red flag. Don't do what the angry person is asking you to do. Okay? It's like, say, can you please jump off the cliff? Never go down that road. Okay? What you want to do is you want to maintain a non-anxious presence, and then you want to start asking them questions. Who's famous for that? Well, man. Socrates, okay, it's called the Socratic method. Is that always if you really want to always win an argument, always ask a question when someone asks you a question. Can't. Okay. You can't lose an argument that way because they can never pin you down on anything. Or what you're doing is when you're asking them probing questions is hey, Cindy, tell me again how the situation began. Where did the argument start? What did she say? Do you really think that she meant it that way? Well, I guarantee you she meant it. Well, how do you know that? You see, when you start to ask probing questions, people, what happens is that you're allowing them to self-differentiate. A good counselor will have two people sitting in a room. He'll never take sides or she'll never take sides. She'll start asking questions about what that person believes. What do you think? What do you think? Tell me how you feel. All right? It's that same philosophy that sounds so common sense, but the truth is many relationships get messed up because either party or both do not understand what the other person's point of view is. And that's exactly what I've got right here. Many times relationships break down at the simple point that one side or both do not make clear enough their positions. When you are angry, do you typically spout exactly what your beliefs eloquently and articulately? This is what I believe. This is how I feel.
I'm very angry.
That's right. I'm a little flustered. That's why I'm going to hit you. That's right. No, that typically is not how we operate. All right? So when that anxiety level goes down, the probing questions start coming out, you will help your friends maintain. Remember, your job is not to take sides. Your job is to maintain connection with that person. Okay? Do not give into giving advice. Ask questions. I promise you they will try to pull you and get you. They want you to do one thing. Agree with them. They're not calling you for you to tell them they're messed up. And they're not calling you ultimately for you to tell them how they can fix themselves. But as Josh knows, and Josh is really good at this, we talked extensively about this last time. My dad is really good at this. My mom is really good at this actually too. I think as you get older, you begin to recognize some of these things, and the best way to diffuse arguments is to begin to ask questions. When you begin to do that, ultimately the anxiety level drops, people's real feelings come out, and what do you end up doing when you're asking questions? Really, what are you doing?
You're forcing them to create a solution for themselves, and that's one that they'll actually follow.
That's exactly right. People will always do what they think they should do. Always. So the best leaders will actually subconsciously, in an artful way, implant my idea into your brain and make you think it's your idea. Make you think that you came up with the idea. Because really, Josh doesn't want to implement my ideas. He doesn't like my ideas. But if I can make him think it was his idea, he'll do it.
You know, God already gave us that. He must have instilled that in us. How do you think we get you to do anything?
That's called manipulation.
That's a totally separate subject.
That's right. We won't go there. All right, never give advice. Next, seeing more clearly. Developing greater clarity about what is happening around you and how critical your role is will always be more productive in the long run than just feeling sorry for the people that are upset or hurting. Okay? Again, our human inclination and natural human instinct is to fix the situation. Oh, I can't believe they were that mean. I can't believe that this happened. Okay? And it doesn't even necessarily have to be a relationship. It can be a situation in your life. Something that just happens out of nowhere. Okay? How do you manage any type of anxiety? It can be literally a tree falling through our house in our living room right now. Don't let that happen, Lord. That will create anxiety instantly in this room. It would be very interesting if that happened, to see what would happen in the room. Because I probably would start screaming. No.
Everybody remain calm.
That's right. That's right. Throw you over the rail. That's right. I'm out of here. I'll maintain my sense of presence somewhere else. Maintain your clarity. Develop. I like this word, by the way. It's developing greater clarity. Because sometimes, folks, you're going to blow it. You're going to walk into your next argument And you're going to go, man, I didn't do anything. And that's okay. Because knowing that you didn't do anything admits that you should have done something. It's when you don't learn anything from the conflicts that you walk into is when you have big issues. You must learn something out of everything. You must diagram the argument when it's over. And what will happen is you begin to implement the stuff in your life. You will recognize, you will gain what people typically take 50 years to learn through experiences in life. Okay? Which is why our mature, seasoned citizens I respect so much, and I've learned so much from them, but they had to learn the hard way just like we are. So what greater good can we offer humanity than to take 35 years of experiences and go, if I learn this now, then I won't have to go through all this pain. I can actually grow up earlier and help people earlier. You don't want to be even at 33 looking back and going, man, there's so many people that I hurt. If I would have known this 20 years ago, I would have been able to help this situation, or I wouldn't have hurt this person, or I wouldn't have tried to fix this, and then now that hurt my relationship and things have never been the same. Okay? Sometimes you can't repair things. Sometimes it might be between your own parents. People grow through challenge and not by simply being made to feel better about their point. That's the facts. Okay? When you go through this and do these things and operate and put these things into your life, what will happen is that you will be, like Josh said, you will begin to help people solve their own problems, and you will grow and they will grow. See, the issue is, if you're a counselor, let's say you're a counselor. If you're a counselor that doesn't take money, you don't want that person coming back. So the best way to not get them to come back is to help them solve their own problems in the future. Now, if you take money, you don't want to ever solve their problem. You want them coming back every week for the rest of their life. Okay? Again, your job is to help them navigate through their problems, not fix them yourself. If you fix them, guess who's the only person that grows? You. Okay? We want people around us to grow. Being non-reactive, number 4. Being non-reactive, I love this statement. Being non-reactive refers to the capacity to become a self with minimum reactivity to the positions or reactivity of others. Dr. Friedman said that. Let me say that again, because it's kind of... Being non-reactive refers to the capacity to become a self. What on earth is he talking about? What does it mean to become a self in reactive situations? Think word pictures. Big group of people. Reactive situation. What does it mean to become a self? You see, when you look at this, what do you see?
A mess.
You see a mess. You see one mess. Okay? When you become a self, you just self-differentiated yourself from the group. You are maintaining a self. You are not allowing... It's kind of like a blind and deaf person in the middle of an atomic situation, smiling. And nobody understands, how can this person be smiling when everyone is screaming because of what's going on? Okay? He is literally creating a self. He is self-differentiating himself in that situation, maintaining a non-anxious presence. Now, he's doing it and he doesn't know that what's going on around him. We need to do that when we know what's going on around us. Okay. Don't move. I like this. It is a self-regulation in the face of reactive sabotage, which is required by Yahweh. It's required by God. God requires us to self-regulate. These are fancy words, but all these words are found in the Scriptures. What a perfect kid. You say, it's time to go to bed, and she just starts waving. Night-night. Good stuff. Just figure out how to sell that on eBay. All right. Shh. Ephesians 4:26. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down in your anger while you're still angry. Right? We hear that a lot. Take this advice. Write this down, all you men. When you are married, if you are married, when you're in an argument, never tell your wife, be angry but don't sin, honey.
You're giving us advice.
That's right. Don't give advice. Never give advice in an angry situation. I've tried that verse on my wife when she's angry. It does not work. It does not work. Okay? Here's the better way to interpret this. In other words, in your anger, don't move a muscle, especially your mouth muscle. That's what that verse really means in the original Aramaic, is in your anger, don't move a muscle. Be angry and freeze. If you don't move, you can't hurt anybody, including yourself. Self-regulation is the ability to regulate one's instincts rather than let them drive one automatically. This is going to get very interesting here as we move forward. Is the ability to regulate one's instincts rather than let them drive one automatically. It is not your job. You want to turn off the autopilot. The only thing you want on autopilot, quite frankly, is the part that's allowing you to breathe. You don't want to have to think about breathing. You want it to happen naturally. That's fine. Everything else, self-regulate. Okay? What does that mean? Well, let's talk about this. The reptilian part of your brain. I love this. Here we go. This is most people's brain. This is my brain. Your brains have evolved. I'm in the process of evolving. No, in all reality, what doctors will call this is the reptilian. It's kind of a slang, really, but it's a reptilian part of the brain because most reptiles' brains look just like this red thing here. What our brains have, what God did was He added to the reptilian part of our brain and gave us all this fluffy stuff. Okay? And some people have more fluff than others. That's why. Ba-dum-bum. Never mind. The brain stem is the oldest and smallest region in the human brain, and for this reason it's sometimes called the reptilian part of your brain. It is proverbal. It means it controls life functions. It controls the auto features of your brain. Okay? It lacks language, but its impulses are instinctual and ritualistic. It's concerned with fundamental needs such as survival, physical maintenance, hoarding, dominance, preening, and mating. Period. That's what the instinctual part of your brain, or the reptilian part of your brain is it's reactive and instinctual. Period. There's no way around it. Okay? It is what happens when you can tell yourself all day long, I should not act a certain way. Okay? But how come when you're put in that situation, every time you mess up, that's the reptilian part of your brain. It's taking over on autopilot. Okay? So what is the enemy of self-regulation? We're going to come back to that reptilian part of your brain. We don't want that. We don't want autopilot. We want self-regulation. We want manual, stick shift, not automatic. Okay? So all that being said, what is the enemy of self-regulation? Anxiety. Okay? Anxiety is the enemy. Because every single time that anxiety comes up, it is going to inhibit your ability to self-regulate yourself. Matter of fact, the more anxiety that you have in your life, if you have an ongoing anxiety situation, it is going to break down your ability for self-regulation almost completely. Okay? I have been in situations in my life, even recently, where I've had a lot of anxiety that's piled on top of me, a lot of stress. You can call it stress. Anytime you have an overabundance of stress or anxiety in your life, it makes it that much more difficult and virtually impossible for you to self-regulate yourself unless you have a lot of experience and maturity under your belt. Let me give you an example. Email is very prevalent today. What is the good part of email? It's instant. What's the bad part of email? It's instant. No, that is part of it. Okay, someone writes you an email that is not happy. You don't get the ooey gooey feelings after you read it. Okay, your face starts to crumple and crinkle, and wrinkles show up, and anger and starts to turn red. What is your first inclination to do? I can type 40 words a minute, and 10 seconds flat, I will have this person screaming. All right? No, that is your first reaction is to fire back an email, and what have you just done? You let this part start working. Okay? You automatically did what was instinctual to you. You did not maintain a sense of a non-anxious presence. You did not maintain equilibrium. You did not regulate the emotions that were coming. You did not diffuse them or anything. What you did was wrong. And what you did was create a problem that is going to come right back to you. Because what do you think that person's going to do? Fire one right back. And probably after she or he called 14 people, you're going to get 12 more emails. Okay? So here's what we need to do. It's best to always, in a situation like that, I had this happen recently. Somebody said something, offended me in an email. And what I typically will do is write an email back and send it to myself. Then read the email. Then send it to my wife. And then she deletes it. The best thing that you can do is find someone that's not connected to the situation and explain to them what happened and let them calm you. Use that as your person that you respect to help you calm down so that you react in the right way. And I can almost always guarantee you, the best thing to do if you don't know what to do is what? Nothing. Nothing. And I'll tell you what happened in my own situation. This is just in the last 48 hours. This person wrote me an email, overreacted. I was very offended at the email. 8 hours went by. He read the email. His wife read the email. His wife could not believe that he reacted that way. His wife totally reprimanded him, and he sent me another email apologizing for everything and said, "I'm sorry, I should have let my wife read it first. I totally overreacted." And then my wife said, "All men are alike. Without us, you guys would never have friends." And it's true. When you are in a very anxious, stressful situation, grab someone and let them help you through that. That is not connected. That's the key. They cannot be connected to the situation. They must be someone that you respect high enough that will have an equilibrium. Okay? And you'll find yourself not having to dig out of holes. And quite frankly, you'll find the other people digging out of holes, not you. Okay? This will help you keep regulated through the flow of anxiety. When you are at peace, self-regulation is easy because you are able to understand the choices before you and methodically choose which one is best. Anxiety, by the way, is what causes the reptilian part of your brain to kick in every time. Anxiety causes instincts. So what do you, if you don't get anything out of this, if you care not to ever go back through this and study this stuff for yourself and try to incorporate this into your life and your relationships, first of all, if you do, you will find yourself very valued among people. You will have some of the most deepest friendships and relationships because of the way that you learn to treat people. But secondly, if you don't get anything else out of this, if instinct always comes back to haunt you, almost always, because you don't want to go back to the ape man, if there was such a thing. Okay, you don't want to be that person. If you don't want to be what you know you're not supposed to be, then what's the number one thing that you need to get rid of in your life? Anxiety. Anytime your temperature rises, recognize, I must lower. I don't care how angry you are going to make a mistake that's going to hurt you. Not the other people, necessarily, which you may. You're going to hurt yourself. And nobody likes to hurt themselves. So lower that anxiety, and you'll be able to grow through that. Okay, 3 warning signs of reptilian brain going to work. Here we go. I love this. Number 1, interfering in the relationships of others. Some of you will automatically think of someone right now. Maybe it's yourself, but this is parts that you know you're reacting instinctively. You're interfering in the relationships of others. Number 2, constantly trying to coerce others to one's point of view. You're constantly trying to defend yourself and coerce people to your point of view that didn't ask. And number 3, inability to relate to people with whom one disagrees. Okay? So if someone, in other words, you can't relate to people that don't agree with you. Okay? In my lifetime, I am a reptile. I'm not sure I was born human. Because I can react to things very quickly. Maybe like some of you, okay? A lot of us do. I don't want to be a reptile walking on all fours and eating flies with my tongue, okay? I want to have good, meaningful, deep relationships, and the only way to do that is to maintain your own level of anxiety. Okay? Don't interfere. The opposite is don't interfere in the relationships with others. Try to stay out of being triangled into a relationship. But if you are brought into a relationship, that's what this stuff is all about. Is to help those people and to help yourself. Constantly try to coerce. Do not try to coerce people to one's point of view. Coercing means that you are trying to force someone to believe what you believe. It's okay to dialogue and debate if that person wants to do that. Okay? But if they're not interested, then you're coercing. And the opposite of this one clearly is try to understand where people are coming from that disagree with you. Try to understand their points of view. Reptilian functioning is true about all human beings some of the time. Did you know that? That's right, especially in type A personalities, right? We all tend to be overreactive or instinctive in some respects. Because emotional reactivity is infectious, effective leadership requires self-discipline to watch the emotional process calmly and not become emotionally aroused. Do not become emotionally aroused or upset. Do not allow... It's kind of like taking water and putting it on the stove. What happens? It takes a long time for it to get to the point where it's boiling, right? That's what you want to be. You don't want to be microwave 2 minutes, you're boiling. You want to be a slow stove, and you don't want to ever boil at all. Bottom line, in a highly emotional setting, here's what we want to do. Stop talking. The tongue, the Bible says in James, is a root of a lot of evil. It sets the whole forest on fire. It says that the tongue is like the rudder of a ship. That little bitty rudder in that massive ship can drive the direction of that ship, east, west, north, or south. So it is not necessarily the hitting that we're worried about, or whatever. It's our tongue. In a highly emotional setting, stop. Mark this page on... If you don't mark any other page, this page is really good to mark. And it'll be easy to remember because it's stop. The next one is drop your weapon. Okay? Drop whatever ammo that you have against that other person. It is only going to hurt you because the only weapon that you have, by the way, in any relationship is a grenade. So what do you think is going to happen when you pull that pin when you're angry? You both are going to blow up. What do you think the next one is? Very good. Stop, drop, and roll with the punches. It took me 10 minutes to come up with that. It's really important that you do that. We need to roll with the punches. When that anxiety level is very high, maintain your self-regulation. Regulate that emotion. Okay? Do not let it affect you. It's very difficult. The younger you are, the more difficult it is. Roll with the punches. All right? Grandparents are famous for telling you that when you ask for advice. Just roll with the punches. Yeah, right, Grandma. You don't know this person. Trust me. What she's really saying is maintain a non-anxious presence and do not allow that person to give you anxiety, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to take the grenade that someone gave them and hand it to you. And when you take it, what's going to happen? It's going to blow up in your face. Last but not least, regulate yourself. Stop, drop, roll, and regulate. Remember that? Easy to remember. Stop, drop, roll, and regulate. Stop talking, drop your weapon, roll with the punches, and regulate yourself. When you regulate yourself, the other people around you tend to do the same. We talked a lot about managing triangles, so we're going to skip through some of this here because we've been kind of talking about this the entire time. Because people want you to take sides, and when you do take sides, It completely reverses the triangle. It makes it unstable, makes the relationship unstable. So when you find yourself triangled, your job is not to find a way out as much as a way to stabilize the two sides. We talked a lot about how to do that. Maintain contact and connection with both sides. Remember that two sides are mainly emotion and anxiety. They're not John and Frank. Okay? It's not Emily and whoever. It's not Josh and John or Jim and Cheryl. It's anxiety and emotion are the two people's names. Recognize that because that's what you need to lower. Then help to reveal which polarities of the three are out of balance by asking questions. Okay? Don't take part in the drama. Moderate. Choosing sides will almost automatically allow each person... Not choosing sides will almost automatically allow each person to see where they went wrong as you begin to ask these probing questions. Okay? Alright, and last but not least, number 6, persisting in the face of sabotage. Probably one of the most powerful things that are under the radar that will happen to you that you won't recognize has happened to you. So we're going to pick this apart and unpack what this means so that when it happens you'll recognize it. Persisting in the face of sabotage. By the way, no good idea or no good deed goes unpunished. Did you know that? Famous quote. Good deeds should not go punished. Okay? But unfortunately, when you self-differentiate and you do something that's the right thing, I promise you it's going to be met with resistance. We talked about that last week. There's going to be initial resistance. When there's initial resistance, David, you do something right and self-differentiate yourself among the group, what's going to happen? They're going to resist you. What he does right now will determine whether he will actually grow through this and become the leader that he is, or he will fold under the pressure. What he needs to do, because what's going to happen is he's going to have initial pain. He's going to instantly have temporary weight and pain put on him because he's made a stand. It's called peer pressure, right? Happens until you die. You must persist in your self-differentiation even when you're being sabotaged. No. When leaders work on managing and defining self, they will meet with resistance and the system will work to pull them back down. Inevitably, every time that you self-differentiate, someone's going to try to pull you back down to what you used to be. Why? Because that's where they're at. They want you to be where they're at. They do not want you to step outside of the system. Whether it be sharing someone what you believe, some of the things we've been learning over the last couple of years, or whether it be something at work, whether it be in a relationship, whether you maintain calm. Sometimes people will be mad at you because you're not taking sides. Work through that. It's like doing weights. Work through that burn. Differentiating self does not lead to praise from the group, by the way, but to a negative reaction at first. Don't ever expect, this is why there's not enough leaders. There's not enough really good leaders out there. Why? Because it's really, really hard to do this at first until you recognize the benefits. When you start to see people's relationships turning around and you start to see how this stuff works, it's almost like magic. It really is. It's like pixie dust. It works that fast. I know Josh was sharing with me some of the situations that he's diffused, and it's almost when you hang up the phone or when you walk away from the situation, you kind of smile because you know that you've just completely almost manipulated that person to do the right thing and they don't even know. But you're helping them. And the situation becomes better because you knew what to do. Be prepared for pressure to pull the leader back to the way the leader used to be. Quite frankly, this is the way a lot of churches are run today. The people in the pew really don't want that person up front to self-differentiate and head in a direction, because why? They can't manage him that way. Everybody wants that control, that group control. The best thing that leader can do is push through that pressure. Leader have to have a clear focus on where the leader is heading and not let self get distracted by reactivity of others. Okay? You cannot allow others to influence you away from what you know is right. Okay? And if you think that this is just some mamby-pamby message on leadership, understand that every one of us should have received this message by the time we were 5 years old. You should be learning in junior high, and high school, and college how to self-differentiate yourself, become independently a person that has thoughts, motives, and morality, ideas, individuality, uniqueness, because it's those attributes that add collectively to an organization and allow it to head in a very good direction. It allows you to accomplish something. If you're so focused on togetherness, there's no goal that's accomplished. Goals are only accomplished by who, typically? Or by what? When an organization, when someone steps out, identifies what needs to be done, and makes sure it happens. Those are the leaders that typically do that. Okay? Well, if everyone in the group was self-differentiating but maintaining connection, doing their part, and using their gift, then we accomplish way more than what was ever expected. And quite frankly, that's where our church should be today. That's where Christianity should be today. We should be way farther down the road. But we can't, because there's not enough self-differentiated leaders. And unfortunately, the groups a lot of times restrict what the leaders can do. They won't allow them to self-differentiate. Watch out for the pathogens. You know what a pathogen is? That which produces suffering. Okay? Best definition, an infectious agent, or more commonly called a germ, is a biological agent that causes disease or illness to its host. Anytime that you self-differentiate in a group, and some of this might be for those of you that are listening online or in your car, it might be a leader or a pastor or a deacon, but this is absolutely one of the biggest problems when you self-differentiate in a group, is there's always one person, at least, that's going to try to sabotage you. Is going to try to throw a grenade at you and bring you down. They don't like the direction that you're going. Here's what they look like. This is a germ. This is what they look like. This is what their blueprint is. They are invasive by nature of other people's space. They invade people's space without asking first. Anybody know people like that? Number 2, they lack self-regulation. They do not know how to self-regulate themselves. Number 3, they cannot learn from their experiences. Okay? They continually make the same mistakes over and over again. And they have lots of energy. I'm thinking of one church I went to, little old lady. I'm telling you, this lady was in her late 70s, and she had more energy than anybody I know to stir up strife. Anybody that said something that she didn't like, and I mean she just went crazy, straight to the pastor, and exhausting the leadership of that church until the leadership, quite frankly, gave in. They made that mistake of biting on the apple. Almost always the least self-differentiated in the group. The germ typically is always the one who is the pot stirrer, the least self-differentiated in the group. They have no idea really where they're going or what they believe or what direction they want to go. They just know it's not in that direction. You ask them why. I don't know, but I don't want to go in that direction. Okay? All of us, by the way, have been pathogens at one time or another and have the potential of damaging whatever relationship system we are in. Every one of us have done this at one time or another, or will do it in the future. Anybody know who this is?
Yeah.
The witch from Snow White, right? Take this, right? Take this apple. Bite it. It's so pretty. These type of people, no kind of counseling, insight, role modeling can work with this kind of virus. Okay? This kind of person can destroy an organization if the leadership bites on that apple. Someone comes to you, what's happening? They have that apple is what? Everything we talked about, what is that apple?
Anxiety.
Anxiety. Very good. Thank you. Rachel, right? They want you to take the apple. Why? Because they've experienced it. And it's painful. And they want you to share in their pain. The second you take that bite, it's poisonous. You will have an immediate emotional, it will rise, that poison will rise your emotional anxiety to their level, and it will destroy you. What happens typically in leadership circles or in organizations is that this person is just like this humble person, that typically comes along, or not so humble, but they're consistent. They're consistently trying to get you to shove that apple down your throat. They're constantly invading your space and trying to change you from being who you really are meant to be. And what happens in most leadership situations is they break down eventually and get bent ear by that person or by that group of persons, and they start letting the minority rule. And then what happens is that leader is no longer a leader. He's a follower. He's been affected by the virus.
Kind of like the local gossip.
Very much so. And he becomes now no longer self-differentiated. He's no longer anything other than part of this amoeba, part of this group. Can't lead from within the group. Got to lead from without. You must maintain your presence when you're in a situation like this. Do not take a bite of the apple. Picture that in your brain, guys. Stop, drop, and roll and regulate, and don't take the apple. Don't take the bite. It will hurt you. Examples of viruses. A person in an organization that disagrees with the leadership's direction. A family member who is bent on sabotaging you because they disagree with something that you believe or direction that you're going. Could be anything. A child who tests the limits and your authority. An outside circumstance, death in a family, financial crisis, etc. Think about this. That apple can be anything, guys. That's why we have to be always alert, looking for anxiety in your life. Stay away from it. Learn how to manage it if it does come into your sphere. Because it doesn't have to be a person. It can be anything. Quite frankly, have you noticed that in a financial crisis, let's say in your own home, how your parents reacted to that is probably how you're going to react. Most times, if they remain calm and come together as a family, that's probably what you'll do, is you probably won't have any anxiety. But if your parents are all upset and angry and don't, guess what happens? I remember one time I started yelling and Sierra started crying. She didn't do anything. What was happening?
She took your anxiety.
I was literally transferring my anxiety. Remember what we said earlier, dominoes fall? Remember we said earlier that whatever my presence is going to affect the person next to me? I raised my voice and my daughter was affected by my anxiety, and it created instant anxiety to such a level that it came out in tears. That is the power of leadership. Now, was I leading her?
In the long run.
Yes, I was. That's what I said in the beginning, and we'll say it at the end. Everyone is leading someone all the time. If you are in the presence of another human being, you are leading them. How you react in a situation is probably what they're going to do. So maintain your equilibrium. When the virus hits, here's what happens. And we definitely notice this in our own family when you have multiple children. The rest of the healthy cells of the organization watch to see how protected they are by the immune system or the leader. Let me give you an example. We're in church. Let's say we're all in church together. Pastor's preaching. Someone stands up and goes, "That is absolutely from Satan. I totally disagree with you." What does everybody do? There is 7,000 pairs of eyes on that one person standing up. Even the deacons don't know what to do. So what does everybody do? Folks, this is true. What is everybody do? What are they doing? They're waiting for the pastor to do what? To see what he does. Some people are going, "I can't wait to see this." And some people are anxious. Some people are just shocked. Some people are probably waiting for him to throw something at her from the pulpit. And vice versa. How that leader reacts in that moment determines the entire direction of all the people in that church, does it not? The healthy cells are waiting to see how the immune system of that organization works. How well that pastor reacts to someone disagreeing with them. If he reacts in a negative way and throws something at her from the pulpit, people will start pulling stuff out of the pew and throwing it as well. That is not the right way to handle that. When the leader is well defined and clear, by the way, the pathogens cannot replicate. Will not allow the pathogen to replicate. Every time that leader becomes unclear in his direction, that pathogen will replicate. Let me give you an example. I'm not being very clear. Not well defining myself. Same situation. Lady stands up, totally disagree, insults the leader or the speaker or the pastor or whoever it is. If the pastor caves under that, or he doesn't handle it correctly, let's say that the pastor returns insult for insult and does not continue down well defining his path but maintaining connection with that person, what's going to happen? Someone else is going to go, yeah, I kind of agree with her. Boom. Germs. 3 or 4, 5 or 6. His reaction to that should be to totally identify her thoughts, validate what she's feeling, but maintain his direction and his identity. This is where I'm going. This is where I'm coming from. I totally recognize your point of view, and that's probably something that we can talk about. And let's sit down. I'm interested in hearing what you're having to say. What is he doing? Staying connected with her, even though she's insulted her. But I'm interested in what you're having to say. Now is probably not the best time to talk about that because I won't be able to hear all your points. Stroke her a little bit. Now what is she doing? She doesn't know what to do. She's expecting me to insult her back. So what does she do? Now she's in a situation where if she gives another insult, she will look bad. So what does she do? She sits down. And I go on with the direction that I'm going. Because I have self-differentiated myself, maintained connection, and now there are no more germs. She cannot replicate herself. That, folks, I'm telling you, is why it's so important. This stuff is so important. Because if you don't understand this stuff and put it into practice, you can literally create germs all around you and pass that negative baton all the way around. You have no idea how many people you might hurt. That you'll never know. Based on the situations and the choices that you make. Because like Josh said, one of the things that impacted him most last week was the statement of, we are the sum result of the choices that we make in our lives. Almost finished. When the leader begins to waver from his clearly defined position and bites the apple, the anxiety apple, the healthy cells will begin to feel vulnerable and threatened. And at this point, the virus will duplicate. When the leader absorbs the anxiety, takes the time to understand the position of the sabotager, maintains differentiation but still remains connected with the group, the pathogen has nowhere to go, finds itself alone, and dying. Okay? Every time. Encourage self-differentiation. The goal is to move the group members toward their own self-differentiation. As counterintuitive it may sound, one's best chance to do that is by focusing on yourself. Focusing on yourself causes others to be who they're supposed to be. Adapting to strength means becoming aware that the ultimate payoff to the health of the organization comes from helping people mature rather than from trying to make their lives more comfortable. See, my job as a teacher or a minister is not to just give you a bunch of information. My job is to help mature you. Some of you are more mature in some areas even than I am. My job is to help you in your weakness to grow, to become better, adapt, and inept to edifying the rest of us in whatever your gifts are, or the people around you. We all play a part. They work on their functioning. Leaders work on their functioning, not on fixing others. Quit trying to fix others and focusing on, this is what people are so prone to doing, is focusing on everybody else's problems. Focus on yourself, and it will be infectious. If there is some emotional turmoil swirling in the work unit, they recognize they are contributing in some fashion to the underlying emotional dynamics. They know if they can modify the part they are playing, others will do the same. People respect People that self-differentiate. It doesn't matter if they have black tattoos all over their body and they drive a Harley and if they self-differentiate in a negative way, they're attractive. If they self-differentiate in a positive way, people follow those that self-differentiate. Period. Okay? They modify that behavior of others around them. The combination of self-differentiation and staying connected is primary tool in implementing this entire model. It is the most powerful part of a relationship. If you don't get anything else, I probably said that 3 times, so there's 3 things that you need to get. I don't even remember the other 2, but this one's important. Self-differentiate but maintain connection. Always maintain connection. There is only one thing important in relationships, and that is the relationship. To sum it all up, let's do a complete quick review here in 2 slides. There are 3 forces that pull people in opposite directions. Number 1, individuality, togetherness, polarity. Pursuing, distancing, polarity. And number 3, overfunctioning and underfunctioning, polarity. If you're doing your part and you're functioning, then you're not causing someone else to overfunction. If you are not pursuing too heavily, that means that someone is not distancing too much. That means that there's a good dance going on. And we give the analogy of dancing. There is someone that is pursuing and leading in the dance and someone that is following. If you pursue too much, it's difficult for the other person to follow. It is a give and take. Individuality, togetherness. You must maintain connection while self-differentiating. And there are 6 must-dos to becoming a better leader. These are the 6 that we went through. Differentiating yourself. Stay connected. Maintaining a non-anxious presence. Being non-reactive in situations. Understanding how to manage triangles. This one's a big one, which is why we spent so much time on it, is because this is going to happen over and over and over in your life. It's being drawn into relationships or highly emotional situations. You need to know how to handle yourself in that. Persisting in the face of sabotage. Sabotage meaning that when something happens, when you self-differentiate, that's going to create anxiety in someone. If I tell Mark how I feel about something and it's not how he feels, it's going to create anxiety in him. Now, Mark, of course, is not the type of person that's going to try to throw something at you, but most people, if they disagree with you, it's going to create anxiety. They're going to try to sabotage you by making you upset. Because if they can make you upset, then you're no different than them. Okay? So persist in your equilibrium, absorbing that energy in the face of sabotage. Bottom line, number 1, people change according to the functioning of those around them. Get that through your head. Because it took me a long time to get it myself. People change according to the functioning of those around. If you're functioning in a negative way and you're highly anxious, everyone else is going to be highly anxious. Okay? If leaders can change their emotional functioning while staying connected, the whole organization will improve its functioning in response to that change. You recognize that power? That's incredible. If you can change your emotional functioning, forget about everybody else. Just focus on you, like you're blind and you're deaf. You change your functioning while staying connected, the entire organization around you, I don't care if it's your 3 friends or 200 people or 1,000 people, it will change the entire direction of mankind, ultimately. And the ultimate paradox is this: leaders' best chance of changing others is by working on themselves. Isn't that something? You would think that leaders have it all together. But typically the leaders that are up here teaching or talking are people that don't have it all together. We're no different than you guys. I have to implement and study this stuff myself, just like you. Okay? And the best way to get you guys to change and to become more like Christ is for me to become more like Christ. Right? But the truth is that Emily knows a lot of people. David knows a lot of people. If I can infuse in you guys these instruments and these principles, you will affect hundreds of people, thousands in a lifetime. 2 final thoughts. Number 1, the power of leadership. Within any living system, the power of the relationship. You want to see what power is? The power in relationship between the leader and the followers is so strong that there is an invisible emotional field that is created that affects the organization either positively or negatively. We've already talked about this. Your field of emotion is infectious. It will spread like fire around you in a good or negative way. So let me ask a question to you tonight. Are you positively affecting the people around you? Or are you negatively affecting the people around you? Or worse, are you not affecting the people around you in either direction? The Bible says in Revelation chapter 3, verse 16, it says, I wish that you were hot or cold, but because you are lukewarm, I will spit you out of my mouth. Take a stand. Which side are you going to be on? You know what Jesus is telling us right there? He's saying self-differentiate. Either follow the enemy and just clearly say it, or follow me and clearly say it. But don't play both sides of the fence, because if you do, you are lukewarm, and I will not accept anyone who's not self-differentiated on my side. Thus the old adage, wherever the head goes, the body goes. Friedman, 1985. Number 2, the world can change. And again, I'm going to go back to the statement we started with, and we'll end with this. If the leader or the head of an organization clearly defines the direction the leader is going, and if the leader stays connected to the members of the organization, the members will follow the leader's direction. This cause and effect relationship happens automatically. It's automatic. If I, as the head of the household, follow Christ and implement principles of the law and His commandments and of the Lord in my life, it will automatically, they will follow me. Haven't you ever wondered why when a Mormon is born into Mormonism, he becomes a Mormon? When a Catholic is born into a Catholic family, he doesn't just grow up Protestant. He grows up Catholic. Lutheran. Anybody ever stop and think what this strange phenomenon is? You become who you hang around. Ever heard that adage before? Whatever direction that the leadership took you is the direction that you automatically went. It was automatic. Okay? So we can automatically affect hundreds or thousands of people in our relationship in this small room here by self-defining yourself, maintaining connection with others. You will automatically affect the people around you.
I surrender to